Bird Assembly 1. Tools and materials: a sharp scalpel or craft knife, PVA glue, I like to use a pot, super glue, just use this when stated. You can use a hairdryer to speed up the drying process. Some bulldog clips, these must open up to at least 40 millimeters. These are to clamp things while drying. Some sharp pointy scissors and a ruler. So step 1, small gear assembly. I've got pieces 1, 2, 2 and 3. You'll see that there's an unburnt face and a burnt face. So there's the burnt face and the unburnt face of the gear. These are from the laser cutter. There's always a burnt side, and I do specify orientation by stating whether the burnt face or the unburnt face faces inwards or outwards. So push out the centers, and you want to slide the gears 2 onto the shaft 1 such that the burnt faces are inwards for the gears. This is because there will be less friction on the unburnt face, which will be rubbing against the side panels. You can use, it says here, the hole in part 14 works well as a support when pushing these parts together. So you can push into that hole just to give you a good support for pushing the parts on. Now push on part 3 with the burnt face outwards. Here I'm using that hole in part 14 to assist. Step 2, base assembly. Prepare sides 9 and 10 by pushing 2 small rods, 8, tight into each. So I'm just pushing out the cavity pieces at the moment. Toothpick can be handy for this. So now I'm pushing a toothpick, and the toothpicks are used as rods. So anytime I mention a rod, I'm referring to a toothpick provided. In steps 2, it says slide a gear, number 6, onto each to check that the rod doesn't protrude beyond its face. If you find that the toothpick isn't a press fit, then you can try a different toothpick. They are varying in size very slightly. So we're sliding on a gear 6 and chop that so that the toothpick doesn't protrude past that burnt face, and I'm just going to push that toothpick down slightly so that it sits just under the face. We'll do the same with the other side. If it sticks out, then the toothpick will catch on the crank as it's turning. 3. Assemble crank rod 4 and 5. Notches align burnt face of 5 is upwards. We want the unburnt face downwards because that will be rubbing against our sliding rod later on and has less friction. Attach large gears 6 on each side, with rod 7 running through all 3. So it's a loose fit in the rod and it's a tight fit on the gears. Now I've just swapped it for another toothpick which is a bit tighter on the gears but still loose on the rod. Now the burnt faces of the gears face inwards as stated. Trim rod so it does not protrude beyond gears 6. So trimming off that rod. I'm just pushing the gears in a bit closer than they need to be while I trim it, so that when I pull them back out to their correct place, the rod will sit just below the face. So again, that we don't want to rub on the side walls as the crank is turning. Just trimming that a bit more. Checking the motion is nice and smooth. Now fitting it into side 9. Now locate the slightly deeper tooth in each of gears 6. Here I'm pointing that out. It's ever so slightly deeper. Align gears 6 by meshing this tooth with each small gear. So we've got to make sure that each of the large gears are lined up so their profiles match. So each of the small tooth in each gear should mesh with the small gear when it's in place as shown. Place side 10 on top and secure all with pieces 11 and 12. So the sides are burnt face outwards. So pushing in piece 11. And pushing on the base, piece 12, burnt face upwards. Some of these pieces can be a little bit stiff to push on, but if you apply even pressure, being careful not to break the pieces, they should eventually push on. Now this shaft sitting in that hole there, make sure that the sides of pieces 1 are sitting against that hole, so you can push them out with the scissors just to open them up if need be. Check the motion, that crank is going up and down smoothly. And that's step 2, the base assembly completed. Now we'll go to step 3, the whistle.